for coming today to listen to me. This is not going to be a technical presentation at all, so you can sit back, relax. I'm not going to go through any kind of data roadmaps. This is more about the human capital side of how we launched Pure at Montclair State University. And we had to do it very rapidly, and we did it successfully as well. I'll tell you really quickly about me. I am a research and project specialist at Sprague Library. I am not a librarian by trade. I am more a marketing person, outreach person. I love doing outreach. I love talking to faculty, customers, clients, anybody to have to do with our research data. And I've also been in fundraising in a previous role, so I kind of bring with me the expertise of both administrative and academic, which really does help when you are launching and implementing something as big as Pure at your university. I've been in higher education for more than 20 years. I have a lot of degrees. You know, when you work for a university, you're always going to school. For some reason, there's always a certificate, a master's program, so I'm constantly learning. And my additional roles are that I am a coordinator of the institution repository, so we use digital commons at Montclair State as well. I invite you at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Simone from B-Press and I will be talking about the integration now that's happening between the two systems, which is something that I was longing for. And once I heard about it last year at the conference, I just couldn't wait to talk to Shannon Quinn about it, and we got on board and we're one of the first schools to roll it out. I'm also the lead administrator for Research with Montclair, and as Henrik alluded to, the Research with New Jersey project as well. So I have a lot of different hats, and they come on and off at all different times. Montclair State, I'll tell you a little bit about us. We have been around since 1908. We became a university in 1994, and we are recognized as a high research activity university. Now what that means in the United States, you have a Tier 1, which is your highest research. Then Tier 2, we achieved that status last year. We're very proud of that. And having platforms such as Digital Commons and Pure really do help when you're promoting and trying to show your research to a global audience as well. We are about 12 miles from New York City, so if you're wondering where New Jersey or Montclair State is, that's our mascot in Times Square, so we are not too far. And I'll begin to tell you a little bit about our research platforms. So Digital Commons is managed by our library, by an internal team. So putting that together, we started in August of 2016. We actually launched in April of 2018. Now, it had nothing to do with the product when we launched. The problem was ourselves. We made sure the guidelines were correct, copyright, so on and so forth. We didn't have to really worry about that with the Pure system, so going into it, I knew that it wouldn't be as, a laborious process as it was for Digital Commons. Also a great platform, too, by the way. And with our Digital Commons, anybody is included. So you can have, if you're staff, if you're administration, any kind of a background, scholarly works go up there. Now with Pure, that's most of our STEM. So it's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's who goes up into the Pure system for us. Both of these systems really align with how we view research at Montclair, and we've really taken research to such an important level, especially with our new designation in the United States as a high research activity university. So this is a great platform for us to be able to showcase it. Now, Pure at Montclair started with Research with NJ. Now, that was a state initiative, and as Henrik said, there was 5 universities, and we got asked about a year after everybody else. I'm not going to speculate why we were asked a little bit later, but when we found out that we were being part of this, we had to launch it pretty quickly because everybody was pretty much a year ahead of us. So the task at hand was, how do we get this up there, and how do we get up there quickly? And having this system also aligns with the state. Now our states, we are a research innovative, collaborative. They want to also promote that. So it really aligned with us very well to have this system as well. And of course, both systems do use Pure. And who are the major players? Obviously we are, the NJEDA and Elsevier. Now Elsevier really played a big role with helping guide us through this whole process. I have to say, we knew that we had to get up there quickly, but we also had to know who else was our institutional stakeholders. So before you start any kind of implementation, or even if you're in the beginning of your implementation, or even if you're into Pure in the past couple of years, always know who's your audience. And our institutional stakeholders, really, our faculty, they are producing our research. So we knew that we had to target something that faculty could really be on board with. Our library, and the library is very, very important in any kind of a research management system. Our research offices, they're in charge of our grants. They're in charge of who is writing research projects, what's out there. So make sure they're on board. The leadership, of course. Our provost wanted this done in like a month, and we were like, oh, I don't think we could do it in a month. But he was very aware of the process at all times. How are we getting ahead? Where are we in the process? What do we need? How's it going? Our colleges and our schools, get your deans on board, get your chairs on board. So these people are invaluable when it comes to having to launch something very quickly. Our fundraisers, believe it or not, they love this pure product because they can actually go and when they're meeting with a donor or if they're meeting with a grant maker and say, oh, this is a research that's being done, and they can actually pull it up and showcase it. So that's a little tidbit if you want to use it, as your, what are the capabilities of Pure? That's something that we don't really ever talk about. But I found that for donors, it's a great thing. Infotech, our Infotech services really had to be involved in our launch. I mean, they are behind the scenes of making sure with Elsevier that everything was correct with our logins and the data that was going in and out, and of course our marketing and communications. Just having them being aware of what Pure is and what this whole new system was very important. So assembling the team, the directives and the guidelines were provided at first by the NJEDA. So they had a certain protocol of what kind of content that they wanted to see, what kind of departments. So we really had to follow their guidelines in the beginning of it. And of course, the Elsevier technical team. I have to give a shout out to Jason Titel. I know he's not here, but he guided us through months of just all the planning, all the technical involvement. I always say, make friends with your rep. They're there to help you. Whether it's B-Press that we deal with, whether it's Elsevier, I always made sure that they were on board and that we had an open dialogue and communication. Of course, now I'm working with the Elsevier marketing team. I have to give a shout out to Farah now, too, because I gave him with Jason. But Farah is working with me on rolling this out in the university, and so we're developing a marketing plan because awareness is really key, too. I always find that with any of these systems, with B-Press, with the Pure system, people are not really sure, like, what is it? Why do we need it? How is it important? So having a marketing communications plan, that's also very key when you're rolling anything out. And this is all part of our big village. And of course, our university project lead, who is our vice provost for research. So it was a brand new position for him, and he oversees our graduate school as well. But he also shapes and directs, and he leads all the research that's done at Montclair State University. And he's also the key liaison with the NJEDA. Now, when I was looking at who does he need to pull from in a university, because this was such a big project too, you have him in the middle. Then we have the library, me and our librarians. Information technology, they were a huge component when you first roll out. And as I said before, they have to know about the logins and any kind of data and setup and structures and so on and so forth. Web services, they helped us out with, I would provide content of for FAQs or little descriptions of things, and they made sure the colors were right and the layout was right, and HTML, everything was proper, and they worked with Elsevier on that as well. And human resources. For us, since we have all active faculty, I had to make sure that the list was accurate of who we wanted to put up there, and also our departments were accurate. So they were a very big part of it too. And we were looking at what were the biggest factors before we launched. And of course, content. You can't have a system like this without the right content. And content was, we didn't have Scopus at the time, but now that we do, it's made our lives a lot easier. But we would get lists from Elsevier, who are our top researchers, and then we take a look at them, categorize them by, well, this one has a lot of citations, and they're STEM related, and so on and so forth. Then we would clear through HR, make sure that they're active, they're faculty, they're still there. And, the technology department made sure that, everything was in the right kind of file. So we had XML files that we were dealing with Elsevier. So we had to really come together. And those are the three biggest components when we launched. And of course now post-launch, it's more of the administration side of it. So I'm taking a big charge of that. And marketing and communications, which we are rolling out soon. But we want to keep it going because we also noticed that when we were looking at all of our analytics behind the scenes, whenever we would send out an email to campus, or if the NJEDA sent anything out, we would get a lot more inquiries, and we'd see a lot more hits, according to our analytics. So you have to, when you launch anything such as this, you have to also make sure that you are following up, and every so often you are generating an email to the campus community or your stakeholders or showcasing something going on. So That's a really big factor when we're post-launching it. I'm just going to quickly tie it all together. So with our team, we had this team from HR, Infotech, Web Services, Library, our Vice Provost. When you have a team such as this, and like I said, we had to launch it quickly. It was launched in 4 months, which was for a big university, and if you work at a big university, you know the bureaucracy involved. It really was very amazing that we did it that quickly. Of course, the person has to have knowledge. That's key. Obviously, they have to know what they're doing, what they're talking about, understand. Our information technology vice president was on our team. She is amazing at knowing all the ins and outs of everything technical going on. But support, and not only support from your campus community and from your leadership, it's very, very important to have your leadership on board with everything that you're doing, but from each other. I knew that I could ask our Infotech VP, if I had a question about something, I can go right to our Vice Provost for research. We became this really cohesive group that supported everything that we were doing with each other. And Elsevier. With our rep Jason, we went back and forth, I can't even tell you how many times, that, with questions. So there was a lot of support coming from all ends for us. Communication. You cannot launch anything this big without being able to communicate. And not even being able to say, like what you think should be done, but like how you should do it. Being able to go back to people in your own team, in your own division, and say, hey, listen, we're having a problem. How can we figure this out together? Communication, is key to everything. And collaboration. Everybody on our team has worked on other university committees. And I would never want to shun anybody who hasn't been on a university committee to be on a new committee, but I think with something this big, if they've worked with other departments and worked on other projects, I sit on a lot of university projects, you kind of get to know the lay of the land of how things work, who you can go to, who you can ask for help. So that's, a very, very big part of it. And, one thing that Elsevier did that really helped us tremendously was our bi-weekly meetings. So every 2 weeks we'd have a meeting with Jason. He would go over the list of, what needs to be done, what they're looking for, assign tasks to people, and then he would put it into, and I'm always so unfamiliar with everything, but Wiki, Jira, Confluence, there's a whole bunch of different things that we go into. And he would get back to us, and we would keep a log of everything that we're doing. And that was really key, I think, to our success of launching and implementing this as well. And you have to define your purpose. Whenever you go into a project this big, you need to say, well, why is this important to the university? Because you're going to need to convey that to people who you also need to get help from. And establish realistic outcomes. As I said previously, everybody wanted it because we came a year late, wanted it done the previous month. And coming from the Digital Commons background and how long it took us to launch that, I knew that if we wanted to do properly and have the right integrity of data in there, you need to take a little bit of time, and you need to be able to convince leadership and your other team members of, I think this is more realistic. Let's try and do it this way. And like I said before, choose committee members based on not just their expertise, but the ability to communicate. You have to not be afraid to say, I don't think it's going to work that way, let's try it this way. And sometimes people are afraid to speak up in a group, but you need that person who can listen, but can also help direct and can also help shape it. Pre-schedule meetings, identify key tasks. That's where I go back to Elsevier. I think if they did not have these bi-weekly meetings, and believe me, some weeks I was like, oh no, bi-weekly meeting again, all these tasks I have to do, I forgot to do this. It really kept us on track. It keeps you focused of where you have to go and how you're going to get there. And of course, appoint members who have experience collaborating. Like I said before, if they know how to communicate to other people throughout the university, it's going to make your life a lot easier in your organization than having to worry about, well, I'm not sure who I ask, or I'm afraid to ask this person. Get the people who are not afraid to express themselves on it. And one thing I also found that was very interesting, that a lot of subgroups formed. And we would have our Infotech VP on it, but she also knew to delegate for certain weeks. She'd have different people from her team come in and say, but we would always inform them and say, this is what's going on, this is why this is important. She would let them know, and then they'd come on, they'd give their expertise, they'd have a couple of assignments. So they weren't really part of the big picture team. They didn't have to be at every single meeting, but they were also in the background working. But the main thing too with those kind of groups is sometimes we forget that they're there and that they need to be informed. Always make a checklist and say, this is what we're doing. This is why we need you to help us out. And, how far have you gone? So don't be afraid to invite other people. Like right now with the marketing communications, I'm working with some staff from that division at our university. And also with awards, I'm working with a whole other division on that. So they're kind of stepping in as a subgroup with me because we're going to be populating awards even more soon. So look to all these little groups that you can form and get on board. Because one thing it's going to help you with when you are done and when it is up there, they are really going to be the champions of why you have this. Because as I said before, as we all know, whenever you have any kind of a research platform, we have digital commons, we have this. I'm always explaining to people why the two are important and why they're both great for us. When people are well informed on your own team about what their role is and why their role is important, they're usually the ones that will go out and they'll tell other people, this is why we're doing this, this is why it's important. And I also found another little tip is that bring some faculty on too that might also, be your top researchers that are in this. I found that when I met with certain faculty, they were excited to see that they're plummetrics. So they want to be part of it. Grab them and let them be part of it. The fundraisers, like I said before, they love this. And this is a whole nother tool for them. So, having people that have your back, so when you're launching this big, big product, when they have your back, they're more apt to go out there and say, oh yeah, this is great. Oh yeah, and then they start telling other people. So I've had a lot more inquiries coming into me about what is Pure, why is this here? Oh, how can I get on that? Lots of questions. And by the way, set up a general email because you'll get so many questions on your personal email that by the end of the day, you're like, no, just do a general email and have one spot where everybody can kind of come in and talk to you about it. But that is how we launched from our little village at Montclair State University.
Thanks a lot, Karen. I just have a question before I ask the floor.
Yes.
So you didn't mention the academics very much. So how is your engagement with, or in US you call them faculty? What is your engagement there? Are they buying into this model?
They do. I think one thing we know about faculty is they love to promote what they do. If you tell them about it, they will definitely be on board because when it comes to research, they all want to be able to say, this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm doing it. So don't be afraid to go out and outreach to them. I usually start out with faculty that I know that are researchers, and having digital commons as well has helped too because they're aware of both platforms, but they're not really sure how to use both. And it always gives me a chance to be able to go up to them and say, okay, well, this is why this is important, and this is how you can look up your metrics, and this is your citations in your social media. I had a professor who was very excited to know that he was tweeted out by Time magazine for one of his papers. So all those little things add up, and it builds upon other faculty, and there's a competition between them. Once one hears that they're being showcased this way, well, how do I get that? How do I get that? To do that as well. So it just all builds up.
Okay, and do they log into Pure to update their own profiles?
Well, they're not allowed to log into Pure directly. We upload everything into Pure for them.
Okay.
But they can contact us and say, I did this paper, can we put this in there? Can we, they do have control over that. But we hope in the future, because we haven't even been launched for a year yet, we do want to update profiles and we do want to give them the access eventually. But right now we figured baby steps, make sure that we have it all correct. Then we'll open it up to them and allow them to build their profiles as well.
Thanks a lot. Any question from the floor?
Is that the US calling?
Thank you. That was really interesting, and the speed at which you moved was quite stunning, I think. Just following up your point that the academics don't log in, so are you not using the Pure portal at the moment, or are you and a massive admin team taking the responsibility to grab everything and curate everything from each academic?
No, we're not. What we do is we go through Scopus in the database, and we have it populated up through that way. It's a pretty easy process right now. I think when we start adding other databases to it, we just haven't turned that feature on yet. That will definitely need a little bit more eyes looking at it. So there'll probably be another team that will form, kind of like our library team for Digital Commons, where we have final oversight into anything that goes up there and we approve it.
Other questions? A question from New Jersey, maybe? That was you.